Hey, this is day 31 of the 100-day video challenge for Regroup for Change LLC. As you already know, Regroup for Change is a consulting entity where my husband Oliver Green and I help individuals, families, and companies to regroup or shift their actions and behaviors from ineffective ways of doing things to effective ways of doing things. And so this week, we are talking to you about self-empowerment and how to be empowered by others. This came from our oldest daughter. When we asked her what she thought about empowerment, she said she thinks it happens in two ways. One, she believes there's an internal factor, and two, she believes there's an external factor. For today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the external factors. And so as you see, the title for today is Uncommunicated Expectations. And I believe that uncommunicated expectations can impact how our external factors, our number two, will impact our ability to be empowered or inspired by somebody else. So, what am I even talking about? Uncommunicated expectations. We have talked about, or at least referenced those before. Those are the expectations that you put off on somebody else. So we already have a preconceived notion about what we think should happen, how we think it should happen, who should do it, and how it's going to be fulfilled, and why they should even care enough about it. When we take these preconceived notions, we begin to develop an expectation. It often happens in relationships. It happens in marriages. It happens in the dating scene. It happens in parent-child relationships. It happens in the workplace. We oftentimes see it in ministry as well. We expect our pastors to show up at times of despair. We expect our siblings to respond in certain situations. We expect our loved ones, whether it's our children, our spouses, our girlfriend, boyfriends, we expect them to do certain things or to respond in a certain way. If we're crying, we expect them to ask why, to maybe wipe our tears. But where does this come from? When we do something well, we expect them to celebrate us. What does that look like? When our birthdays come up, we look at our Facebook feed to fill us up and to say happy birthday a million times from every one of our friends. But why? Why do we develop these expectations? We develop them based on our personal circumstances, based on how we treat people, based on how people have treated us in the past, and or based on how we've seen other people treat other people. However, when we take these expectations and we project them onto others without communicating these expectations, we set ourselves up for failure. So that means that when I'm crying and I expect my husband to respond, when he doesn't respond, then I feel some type of way. I feel like he doesn't love me. I feel like he doesn't care. I feel like he doesn't understand. And I take the scenario to a whole other level, all because he's not giving me the response that I've projected on him to give me. The question is, have I even communicated with him what my expectation is? Have I said to him, babe, whenever you see me crying, this is how I need you to respond. This is how I'm expecting you to respond. And if I haven't given him those cues, if I haven't had that conversation, if I haven't communicated with him what I want to see in a response or a reaction, then he's probably not going to give it. And when he doesn't give it, I can't get in my feelings. I can't want to withhold things from him. I can't want to sleep on the couch, all because he failed to meet an expectation that he didn't even know existed. This can happen in other areas of life as well. I've had situations where I believe I've been expected to respond in certain ways and I simply couldn't do it. And so I've had to sit back and reflect and say, why didn't I respond in a certain way? I've lost friendships because I failed to respond in a certain way. The one thing that I would challenge you with is when you have an expectation that's not communicated, I also will challenge you to consider whether or not the other person even has the capacity to respond to you in the way that you expect it. So one, I'm challenging you to communicate your expectation. And then two, I'm challenging you to ensure that the other person who you're expecting to reciprocate in action or behavior has the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual capacity to respond in the way that you're seeking them to respond, the way that you're expecting them to respond. Because if they don't have the capacity to fulfill your expectation, then again, you're setting them up for failure, even if it's in a communicated expectation. So, communication or a communicated expectation. So, an expectation, one, has to be communicated, and two, there has to be dialogue about whether the other party has the capacity to meet the expectation. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't grow in our capacity, but you can't expect me to do something that I'm not currently in a place where I'm able to fulfill that. I'm going to leave that there and let you think about that. So, my question to you is, have you very clearly articulated your expectations onto the people who you're expecting to respond in a certain way? And have you determined together whether or not the other person has the capacity to respond in the way in which you're expecting them to respond? We are only empowered by others to the level where they're able to meet our need, where we have communicated an expectation of what we need, where we have a realistic expectation. And that's why it's so important to communicate it. Because if it's an unrealistic expectation, which even if communicated can't be fulfilled, we won't be empowered. And so I encourage you to open up the dialogue, have communicated expectations, and assess the capacity of that expectation to be fulfilled. I hope this helps you. It certainly helped me today. Love you. Peace.